Welcome to Money Control. I am Karunya. With me is Manisha Gupta, and today we'll talk about the hike in MSP which was announced by the cabinet just today. Talk to us about which are the crops in focus and what has been the quarter of hike. Is it largely on expected lines?
It is, because CSCP always recommends the hike in MSPs, and we've seen that bill between 3 to 9% as was expected. And this time around it's very easy to memorize because 100 rupees and then 400 and 500 is how we've seen the hike come in as. And yes, it's on expected lines. The only one thing that the farmers did not like this time around is that for last couple of years we've seen MSP being announced in the month of September itself, because by the time it's October, farmers already start sowing crops, so they know what to sow and what is the kind of MSP that they can be looking at. This time around it's almost mid-October and now we've seen it coming in, so that's been a bit of a concern there.
Which are the crops that are going to be affected by this?
So you have major 6 Rabi crops that you look at sowing during the winter season. One is of course wheat, where we've seen the hike of 110 rupees per quintal, much on the expected lines. Barley is seen an increase as well. The major crops, and the markets were anticipating this by the way, that higher quantum at 8 to 9% will come in for pulses and edible oil. Mustard is something that the government has been keeping an eye on, and the other one is masoor, where you've seen nearly 400 rupees per quintal of a hike. So yes, pulses and edible oil is something that the government has been talking about, self-reliance. We also have seen the input cost increase so much, so whether it's about seed, fertilizer, transportation, labor, pesticide, logistics, all of these costs have gone up, and the farmers did say during the Kharif crop as well that the hike, while has been as per CSCP recommendation, but it doesn't really cover their input costs. So this time around we still are waiting for reaction, but yes, when you look at pulses and edible oil, there shouldn't be a problem area or a reason to complain.
But why the quantum of hike for mustard and dals, pulses has been higher than expected?
Because
and how bad is it?
So yes, it will definitely impact the inflation, is something that we have been talking about. But remember, we were listening to the food secretary in this week itself saying that there is going to be a hike, but it's not just India centric. The global markets have seen a hike in many food prices there. And when it comes to pulses and edible oils, we import a lot of both of these commodities. So even as we treat both of these commodities as our staple diet, we end up importing nearly 50% of our edible oil requirements. We end up importing nearly 25 to 40% of our pulses import requirement as well. So yes, higher MSP is expected to give more impetus to farmer to sow more of this. But yes, on one side the government is tinkering with the import duty, ensuring that you have enough affordability. On the other side, we have seen a hike in MSP as well. So it's going to be a balance for the government going forward, especially when you have elections coming in a couple of states here. You have to make that balance to farmers as well.
And to what extent could it impact companies, FMCG companies who are using a lot of this as raw material, the likes of ITC, Nestle, HUL also to a certain extent? How will it impact their finances?
So, well, absolutely, the wholesale and the retail price has always been a bit of a fight. And there has been this conversation on how the global prices of many of these commodities have come down. The wholesale prices show a decline as well, but not the retail. So this is exactly the reason for that, because you do see this volatility in many of these food prices continue to go on. So if these FMCG companies have declined or cut their retail pricing, then of course it's an impact to them on their margins. But
they usually end up passing on the cost, so it's bad news for us.
And they don't keep moving these prices too often. We did see that happen in case of edible oil, where the government directed them to cut prices. Did all of them do that? No. Has it come into prices even now? It hasn't. So I'm assuming that's how.
But could it spell more bad news for end users? Because will we now pay more or significantly more for these basic crops like wheat and mustard, dals, etc.?
Oh, well, absolutely. Let me give you an example. So if the wheat MSP until last year was 2010 rupees, the wheat prices are anyways trading at around 26-28 rupees per kg, with the expectation that we might go to 34-35 as well, because there isn't enough wheat in the country, and the government hasn't procured enough, and it can't bring it into the markets like that. So are we going to pay more? Yes, we are going to pay more, much higher than the MSP. When you look at mustard MSP, 5,050 was last year. With an increase of 400, it's at 5,400. The current ruling prices already are at 6,200 to 6,500. So we are way higher than MSP, and that's just the wholesale price. The retail is much higher. We all know that. So yes, I think it's going to keep hitting the bottom line and the top line as well.
Ouch. Okay, well, there you have it. That's the update, and that's how the hike in MSP will impact you and I as well in terms of our expenses. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow with a fresh update on commodities.